Welcome back to the Crypto channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is still repeating history, continuing to dump towards the downside, as we've just seen the Bitcoin ETFs dump hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin over the last one day. But in the immediate short term, the price of Bitcoin is now starting to run into this crucial area of support that I'll talk about in just a moment, alongside Ethereum, which is now flashing a new signal in the short term that we need to pay attention to, while the price of Solana is just now starting to confirm this new signal in the short term. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, just before taking a look at the Bitcoin and crypto charts today, taking a quick look at the US stock market today. This right here is the S&P 500 index on the 1 hour time frame, and we can see that right now in the short term it's continuing a bit of a cool off, still showing some weakness, at least in the short term, for the US stock market. And as I always say, the stock market and the crypto market are highly correlated. It's not a perfect one-to-one correlation, but usually if we see a lot of weakness or some sort of bearish move in the stock market in the short term, usually that's not good news for Bitcoin and crypto. That tends to cause potentially some bearish price action, maybe a lot, maybe just a small amount, but at least some bearish price action is usually the case. If we see some bearish price action in the stock market, is also the case for the crypto market. And so just keep this in mind throughout the video when I'm talking about crypto charts. Just keep this in mind. Obviously not good news for Bitcoin and crypto, at least in the short term. And just before taking a look at the Bitcoin charts today, taking a quick look at some Bitcoin news today, because we now have the ETF numbers for yesterday, for Thursday, and we can see that so far this week, obviously it hasn't really been a massive week in terms of inflows or outflows. At least up until Thursday, we saw a massive net outflow, which basically means a bunch of people dumping the ETF shares, therefore the ETF providers effectively dumping Bitcoin. And so first of all, on Monday, we saw a net inflow of only $6.8 million. Tuesday, a net outflow of over $147 million. Wednesday, a net outflow of almost $20 million. And on Thursday, a net outflow of over $817 million US dollars just on Thursday. So obviously that's a massive outflow here, which once again causes sell pressure. This is potentially also helping to cause some bearish price action for Bitcoin and crypto. And we can see that on Thursday, the largest individual outflow for a Bitcoin ETF was, of course, the BlackRock spot Bitcoin ETF of over 317, almost 318 million US dollars coming out of the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF just on Thursday, which basically means effectively investors pulled that money out of the ETF. Therefore, BlackRock basically has to sell that amount of Bitcoin in order to effectively pay out those outflows to investors. And so with that being said, taking a look at the Bitcoin charts today here on the weekly time frame, nothing much has changed over the last one day on this time frame. So the super trend indicator still sitting in the red, and we still have a massive bearish divergence to watch out for, which is technically still active on the weekly Bitcoin price chart. And if we're taking a look at the daily time frame over the last one day, we've just now seen one daily candle close confirmed below this level of support, which was sitting at around 85 to 86,000. And we can see that the latest daily candle close confirmed at roughly around 84,500. And obviously since then, the price of Bitcoin has gone even lower. In fact, as low as around 81,000 at the local low as of right now, which is also very similar to this previous low that we saw back in November 2025. And so potentially based on this previous low, we'll likely find some support at give or take 81,000. But if we continue a break below that level, especially below 80,000, in that situation would likely retest these previous lows that we set back in April 2025. So if we're going off the candle closes, that's talking about maybe 76,000. If we're talking about the candle wick low, the actual lowest low of this low right here, in that situation, that's around 74,000, just above 74,000. And we could still see that this price structure here on the daily Bitcoin price chart is still looking very similar right now to what we saw back in 2022, in early 2022. So especially around March entering into April is basically where we are currently at in this fractal, still repeating history. And so obviously what we saw back here in 2022 was a larger bearish market with actually a few months worth of mostly choppy sideways price action and a slight bullish relief. And then we started to break out above a crucial level of resistance, and then we failed to hold above that level, started to see a break back towards towards the downside, therefore invalidating the breakout, which was of course a massive bearish signal. And right now we've seen pretty much the exact same thing over the last few months, a larger bearish market, a lot of choppy sideways price action for a couple of months with higher lows, and then leading into a breakout above that key line of resistance, and then failing to hold that line, breaking back to the downside. And ever since then, obviously, for the most part, we've been dumping with a bit of choppy sideways price action and slight little bullish reliefs in between the dumps, which is pretty much exactly what we saw in April 2022. And so whatever happens in the shorter term on the smaller timeframes, yes, we could see little bullish reliefs here and there on small timeframes, but despite that being the case from time to time, obviously the bigger picture still not looking too good. If we're talking about the next multiple weeks or the next 1 or 2 months, that sort of time frame, we still need to be really cautious and quite possibly going to see some more bearish price action within the next month or so. But if we're zooming into the shorter term, taking a look at that 8-hour Bitcoin price chart, right now, just in the short term, the price of Bitcoin is starting to run into a potential area of support here based on this previous low that we saw back in November. And based on the candle closes here, this area of support is sitting in between around 82.5K to 83,000. And then once again, as I said earlier, based on the actual candle wick low, we will likely find some support at around 81,000. And then if we break below all of those areas on the price chart, in that situation, would likely head down towards at least around 76,000, around 74 to 76,000 would be the next significant support. If we first break below 81K, which of course would mean a break below this area of support, which we're currently testing as of recording this video, once again at around 82.5K to 83,000. And it's also worth pointing out that here on the 8-hour Bitcoin price chart, obviously we're hitting oversold in the 8-hour Bitcoin RSI. And usually if we hit oversold, that is basically a signal telling us that we've gone too far to the downside too quickly just in the short term. And we need a little bit of time, maybe just a few hours, maybe 1 or 2 days, just to reset the RSI out of oversold. Now, I want to make this clear. This does not mean to expect a massive bullish trend reversal or a lot of strength or anything like that. Sometimes it can just be a slight little bounce, sometimes even just a bit of choppy sideways price action, which can help to reset the RSI towards the upside out of oversold, which can give us more room towards the downside later on. And so this is why I always say it's important to understand the difference between the different time frames, even though, yes, we're potentially running into a bit of support here or more support at around 81,000 and obviously hitting oversold. All of these signals are only short-term signals. So even if we do see just a slight little bounce from a point of support or playing out an oversold signal, just resetting a little bit in the short term, do not be fooled, because the bigger picture, talking about say the next month or so, still not looking too good. And if we're taking a look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, we can see that obviously over the last couple of days, we wiped out an area of liquidity at roughly 84.9K to 85,500. So we already wiped out those long positions there, but we have more liquidity starting to build at around 72,500. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, that's still a decent distance away from the current price of Bitcoin. And obviously, it would first require the price breaking below these points of support that I just mentioned. But keep that in mind. That's potentially acting as a bit of a magnet for the price of Bitcoin, pulling the price towards around 72,500. But remember, between now and then, we have a lot of support, especially around these previous lows that we saw back in April 2025. I would expect a lot of support at give or take 74 to 76,000. And as for my trading strategy, personally, I'm not currently in a Bitcoin trade, but I am in another trade, which I'll talk about in just a moment. So definitely stick around for this. But if you're wondering, this trade right now that I'm currently taking myself, I'm taking over on the 2bit crypto exchange. So I'll make sure to leave a link to 2bit below the video in the description and in the pinned comment. In fact, the first link below this video will take you to this page right here over on the 2bit crypto exchange, which by the way is also a no KYC exchange. And 2bit just recently partnered with La Liga. So there's currently a massive event happening right now over on 2bit of over 800,000 USDT worth of prizes. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out and take advantage of this. If you're simply trading crypto, once again, you can be eligible for some of these major prizes here. So definitely check it out. Take advantage of this if you want to, using that first link below the video. And once again, 2bit is also a no KYC exchange. But if you want another option out there, another exchange that I also use from time to time to also claim some extra bonuses on, then in that situation, check out the second link below the video in the description and in the pinned comment, because the second link below this video will take you to this page right here over on the Pinex crypto exchange. And over here, you can claim extra bonuses just by completing KYC, for example, making your account using that link below the video, completing KYC, you get a 50 USDT bonus onto your Pinex account. And on top of that, there's deposit bonuses. If you deposit as little as 100 USDT, you get a 100 USDT bonus on your account. If you deposit 10,000, you get a 1,000 USDT bonus onto your Pinex account. So basically a bunch of free money from the exchange, which you can claim using that second link below the video just by making deposits or completing KYC using that link. So once again, if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, or getting set up ready to go to take a next trading opportunity, then you might as well get set up ready to go using those links below the video to these exchanges to take advantage of these major bonuses. But with that being said, taking a quick look at the Bitcoin dominance chart on the daily time frame, and right now overall the Bitcoin dominance is still just basically bouncing around sideways in a bit of a sideways price range. So in terms of the price structure or the trend, we're still currently looking very neutral, as we could clearly see, which basically means a lot of the major altcoins out there on average will likely perform very similar to whatever Bitcoin is doing, not necessarily much better or much worse. So basically with Bitcoin obviously having these dumps towards the downside with the occasional little bullish relief here and there in the short term, expect something similar to this for a lot of the major altcoins is basically what this is telling us right now. And if we're taking a look at Ethereum on the daily time frame, obviously we're seeing pretty much exactly that for the price of ETH, continuing the perfect rejection from this exact Fibonacci level at around $3,040 to $3,050. And in fact, right now the price of ETH is starting to break below this point of support here, which was sitting at roughly around 2.8k, really in between 2750 to 2.8k as an area of support. So now that we're starting to break below that area, especially if we confirm this daily candle close below 2750, in that situation we'll likely now find resistance at especially around 2.8k. And as for the next support to watch out for, I'd likely expect a lot of support sitting at around 2.6k, even slightly above 2.6k, so around 2630 approximately as a major point of support to watch out for. And below that, we would find a lot of support down here in between around 2.1k to 2250 is a very likely scenario if once again we first confirm a break below around 2.6k. And if we're zooming into the shorter term, taking a look at the 6-hour time frame for the price of ETH, right now we're flashing a new signal in the short term that we need to pay attention to, but I want to make this clear. Right now it is not yet confirmed. So of course this signal is known as a bullish divergence. In case you're new to all of this, it's basically lower lows in the price in the candle closes, which have already been confirmed at this point, but we're still waiting for this higher low to actually confirm properly in place on the 6-hour Ethereum RSI. So right now we're still forming the higher low, but it's not yet actually confirmed. But as usual, if this potential bullish divergence actually confirms here, obviously the last bullish divergence we saw play out was this one between these lower lows in the price and higher lows in the RSI. And what came next was just a slight bullish relief. Once again, not necessarily a massive high momentum reversal towards the highs, but just a slight little bullish relief is one of the most common outcomes, maybe even just some choppy sideways price action. So basically a break or a relief from all of the bearish price action, usually for a couple of days, if we're talking about the 6-hour time frame, is the most common outcomes, the most likely outcomes from a bullish divergence. Once again, if it actually confirms, and then remember, even if it confirms, that does not necessarily mean a reversal out of this bearish trend, maybe just a short-term break during the bearish trend. And so that is something to watch out for in the coming hours and days here in the short term for the price of ETH. And if we're taking a look at the price of Solana on the daily time frame, right now the price of Solana is obviously following Bitcoin, stocks, the rest of the crypto market with that continued dump, at least in the short term here. And right now we're running into a point of support based on this low that we saw back in March 2025, sitting at around $112 to $113. So expect some support around there on the price chart based on that previous low. And if we break below $112 with confirmation, in that situation, the next support to watch out for based on this low that we saw back in April 2025, based on the candle closes, is sitting at around $105. And then based on the candle wicks, would likely find more support at around $100 to $101. and more support at around $95. So those are all of the key levels to watch out for on the price chart when it comes to support for the price of Solana. And as for resistance, if we see any little bounce here in the short term, expect some resistance at give or take 118, around 117 to 118, which as of recording this video, we're already testing that level right now. And if we see a breakout past that point, in that situation, would likely find a lot of resistance at around 123 to 125. And if we're zooming into the shorter term, taking a look at the 6-hour time frame, right now the price of Solana, unlike Ethereum, has actually just started to confirm this new bullish divergence. We now have one confirmation signal starting to confirm the bullish divergence. Obviously, we've already confirmed the lower lows in place in the price, in the candle closes, and we now have one confirmation for one little bounce here in the 6-hour Solana RSI. So once again, this is now starting to confirm, which means we're most likely going to see either a slight bullish relief or maybe just a bit of choppy sideways price action as the most common outcomes, the most likely outcomes from a bullish divergence. So remember, don't necessarily expect a massive high momentum movement towards the upside, but just a slight little relief or break from all of the bearish price action is quite likely now in the coming hours or days. Remember, this is only a short-term signal during this larger bearish trend. And if we're taking a look at the price of XRP on the weekly time frame, right now the price of XRP has finally started to break below this crucial level of support here at around $1.80. I've talked about this many times here on the channel, especially recently as we've been testing that level of support at $1.80. And once again, as of recording this video, we're clearly trading below that level, so starting a break towards the downside, but we've not yet technically confirmed the break towards the downside. Ideally, we need to see a weekly candle close below $1.80 to actually start confirming the break towards the downside on the weekly time frame. And then especially if we fail to get back above that level, obviously that would keep the break towards the downside active, because as usual, if we break a key level on the price chart and then break back to the other side of that level, that would actually invalidate the break of that level. So keep that in mind. But obviously so far things are not looking too good, especially here on the weekly time frame, because we still have this massive bearish divergence technically still actively playing out on the weekly XRP price chart. And if we actually start to confirm the break below $1.80 on the weekly time frame with a weekly candle close below that level, in that situation we'll likely see a massive drop in the price in the coming weeks and months. Once again, this is not talking about the short term here. This is talking about most likely the next few months or so. And the next immediate target would be sitting at around $1.60, but honestly, we could quite possibly hit around $1.30 to $1.40 as the next significant area of support, significant area on the price chart, if we actually officially start confirming the break below $1.80 with a weekly candle close below that level. But now that we're possibly starting to break below that $1.80 level, once again, not yet confirmed, but starting to potentially break that level, I have started to just open a small short position. At this stage, obviously, it's only a relatively small trade, and I've actually already closed a small portion of the trade. So once again, still a very small trade at the moment, but I'm just being fully transparent with you, telling you what I'm currently doing with my own money, not financial advice. But basically, now that we're starting to break below $1.80, for me, it makes sense to start accumulating a short position. But remember, it's not yet fully confirmed, so I haven't really entered all the way into that trade right here for the price of XRP. So ideally, if we see more confirmation, or maybe if we start to retest $1.80 and start to see a strong rejection from that level, in those situations, I'll potentially add to this short position, but I'm just accumulating a small short position in case we obviously continue a dump towards the downside, and then obviously later on start to confirm the break below $1.80. But something to watch out for in the short term, which would potentially make me just close this trade for now, would be, of course, this bullish divergence, which is starting to form on the daily XRP price chart. Once again, not currently confirmed. I want to make that clear, but we are starting to form lower lows in the price in the candle closes, while still currently forming higher lows in the daily XRP RSI, which is indeed a possible bullish divergence forming, but not yet confirmed. So honestly, right now is a make or break moment for the price of XRP, because if we confirm this new bullish divergence, then we'll likely live for another day in terms of avoiding the break below $1.80. We'll likely see potentially another little relief in the coming 1 or 2 weeks as a very likely scenario, continuing to hold above that $1.80 level if we confirm this new bullish divergence in the next few days or so. But if this fails to confirm and we continue the dump below $1.80 and then confirm the weekly candle close below $1.80 and especially continue to hold underneath that level, obviously that would further confirm this break towards the downside on the larger time frames, and therefore we would not have a bullish divergence at all if this RSI starts dumping below this previous low. So once again, this is definitely a deciding moment, a crucial moment, at least in the shorter term for the price of XRP. So due to this reason, I've just opened a very small trade and potentially add to this trade if we see more confirmation starting to form in the bearish direction. And then once again, if we start to actually confirm the bullish divergence on the daily time frame, then I'll potentially just get out of this trade. And obviously right now it's still in basically break even a slight little profit, as you can see right here. So that's the current situation and my trading strategy for the price of XRP. Definitely a deciding moment at the moment. And as for resistance, in case we see this bullish divergence confirm and we see any little bounce here in the short term, I'd expect some resistance at give or take $1.80, and above that more resistance at around $1.93 to $1.94, and massive resistance at $2.05 if the price were to actually get back to those levels. And if we're taking a look at the price of Chainlink on the daily time frame, obviously right now the longer term bearish trend is simply continuing for the price of Chainlink. We're breaking into new lows and actually starting to break below this low that we saw all the way back in June 2025. So obviously we're still looking very much bearish for the price of Chainlink. And if we're zooming out to the weekly Chainlink price chart, looking at the next significant area of support to watch out for, that's really sitting in between around $9.50 to $10. So expect some support in that region as a very likely scenario. And if we break below $9.50 in that situation, I'd expect more support in between $8 to $8.50 and massive support all the way down here in between $5 to $5.50 if the price, of course, first breaks below these areas of support. And in fact, if the price of Chainlink confirms with a weekly candle close a break below $9.50, in that situation, that will start confirming a massive multi-year head and shoulders pattern, which would be a significant bearish price pattern. And this, because it's on the weekly time frame, has been forming over multiple years, since basically October 2023 all the way up until now, multiple years forming this huge head and shoulders pattern, which would likely set up a massive bearish price target, would likely see the price absolutely nuke towards the downside if we break below $9.50. So that's definitely a crucial area of support to watch out for in the coming days and weeks. But remember, do not make the mistake the beginners make in thinking that we need to see only bullish price action to make money in Bitcoin and crypto, because that is not the case. We can still make a lot of money in the crypto market even while prices are dumping. Yes, that is right. In case you're new to all of this, you can still make money using things like short positions, for example, as I'm currently doing in real time, as you can see right here, making money as prices are dumping. So obviously stick around here in the crypto market, stick around on this channel if you want to keep paying attention to potential opportunities in this coming market as we're seeing these drops in the price. And remember, in order to take any of these trades, you need to be set up ready to go on a crypto exchange. And if you're using those links below this video to those exchanges, you can take advantage of extra bonuses that you can claim using those links if you want to. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well take advantage of those extra bonuses using those links to those exchanges. And of course, if you want to know how you can trade these sort of moves, no matter what direction the price goes, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions. And the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.